All right, I just recorded 30 minutes of this and then realized that I was absolutely, positively, unequivocally rambling nonsensically. It wasn't that bad, but it was pretty bad. Today we're talking about Frieren, Beyond Journey's End. We've talked about manga for a bit in the past, manga as a whole, not a specific manga, but I tried to just let you guys know, give you a little bit of a warning. You know, we might get into some nerd territory here. Today's that day. Today is definitely that day. We're gonna get into some niche nerdy stuff, but I do expect this to be a little bit longer of a video. So first and foremost, I loved it. I loved this show. I love this anime. It has gotten some flack. I've seen a couple reviews where people were pointing out some things they didn't like so much, and that makes sense. You know, everyone's got their points, and I agree with them in some aspects, but in some ways I disagree. But the three main things I want to talk about as to why I enjoy as to why I enjoyed this show so much are the pace, the juxtaposition, and the world building. The pace is one of those things that let me just, I don't really know if I'm going to get into heavy spoiler territory, but just I'm going to give a warning here for spoilers potentially. And then in post, if it's not that bad, I'll throw up a title card and be like, you don't got to worry or something if that's the case. But anyway, I've seen people making reviews about the show, the anime, and complaining about the pace. They think it's too slow. There's too much talking, too much yapping, just too much exposition dumping. It's just too slow. And at first I was definitely feeling what they were saying. There are some scenes that feel like they're just a little bit too long. Like, why are we watching them walk through the forest for this long? Why are we watching them just do mundane things and walking through town for extended periods of time or whatever it might be? But when you think about the show as a whole and not just the episode or whatever plot point you're waiting to get to, when you think of what the environment around them is, it makes a lot more sense. The full title of Frieren, Beyond Journey's End tells you right there that Frieren is an elf. She's lived for, I think, thousands of years, and she has already gone on an adventure with the heroes party in her past, and she's watching as like her team, you know, gets old because they're humans and they're getting old and you know, passing away and whatever else. But they've already done the thing. They've defeated the demon lord or demon king. I can't remember what they called it, but they've already done the big thing. So we're really walking through a world of peace or more peace, because they're still monsters. They're still, you know, they're fighting dragons. They're fighting, I don't know if they mentioned goblins in this actually, but they have like those high fantasy, I think, Dungeons and Dragons type of characters, of monsters and stuff. So there's still things that are going on where, you know, there's a town being attacked and there's still things that happen that they need adventures for, but it's not that they need to rush to get to something to save the world and do this big grandiose achievement thing. So to me, that already sets up the pace to be a little bit slower when you look at it from that aspect. They aren't in a rush to get anywhere. There's no thing that they need to accomplish that's going to change the overall workings of the world around them. They're just kind of going on a trip. And when you think about Frieren as a character and how, again, she's lived for thousands of years, she's a super powerful mage. She knows so much about magic and has seen magic literally develop over thousands of years. When you think about her as a character, and you're watching how she interacts with Fern and Stark, these new, younger adventurers coming in, it really feels like watching a main character on a New Game Plus run. And like, I've played games like Assassin's Creed, Odyssey, and Spider-Man PS4. And when you finish that main one, for anyone that doesn't know what a New Game Plus is, let me just clue you in. When you finish that first run, that first main story run, and you finish the main storyline, and if you're like me, you try to play till you get to 100% achievements and 100% the game. Once you do all that, you might look at the screen and it'll say like, oh, you could start a new game with New Game Plus, where you just restart the game back to level 1, but you keep all of your equipment, all of your abilities, all the things that you unlocked in that first playthrough, you keep, but you start back from level 1 and just play the game again, but now you're just like tip-top shape, right? That's how it feels like when you watch Frieren because she has so much knowledge about magic, and she is so strong as a character and as a mage that you don't always feel like she needs to be in a rush, because she just has to kind of make up her mind of what she wants to do, and then she's going to do that thing, and things will start progressing again. So it just gives, to me, it just gives a heavy New Game Plus feel because of, I don't know, how cool the characters are and how much they do know. Not even just Frieren, but Frieren too. So that's how it feels to me. And I think that they really sell that feeling and that slower pace with those scenes that feel like they drag on a bit too long, or with those animations that it feels like, did they just have a little bit extra in the budget and someone just had some extra frames that they had cooked up? Like it gives that feel, because the slower dialogue and the more that they do give those monologues and weird little exposition dumps that don't always seem like they matter a whole lot to the main storyline, when they give you those details, it feels to me like watching Dimension 20. If you've watched that, any of those seasons for their Dungeons & Dragons campaigns, when Frieren and other characters start going on about intricacies of magic, which really does not matter for what they're trying to do, end goal, or when it shows a scene like Stark getting out of bed after kind of taking a few days off and lying around, lazing around because everyone else had stuff to do, and he was like, cool, I don't have anyone kind of breathing down my back right now. I'm going to do what I want to do. He's just like me for real. I'm going to wake up at noon and I'm going to eat snacks, and I'm not going to train because I don't got to today. Like when he does that, and then it shows the slow scene of someone knocking on his door at his inn, his hotel room, and he's slowly getting out of bed and putting on his shoes and slowly walking across the small room to open the door. Those moments feel like watching Brendan Lee Mulligan and the Intrepid Heroes.
Hello and welcome back to Fantasy High. My name is Brendan Lee Mulligan. These are our Intrepid Heroes. Say hi, Intrepid Heroes.
Hi, Intrepid Heroes.
Yeah!
When he would be giving the build up to what the character is going to do or what actions they're going to take as an event's about to occur. So if it's, oh, they're walking across the room, you might have a -1 to your attack rolls or athletic rolls because you have slacked off on your training, and you're going to open this door. Is there anything you want to do before you open the door? Do you want to grab your sword, or are you wiping crust out of your eyes because you just woke up? Like that's what this feels like to me when they give those longer scenes that don't seem like they're really going anywhere.
Adine, you are walking past the library. As you are walking past it, roll a perception check. And you see that there is a book lying on a little table right near the entrance of the restricted section.
I cast Mage Hand as her back is turned, and I take the book.
The book zips from the restricted section of the library.
It just feels like the game master kind of cluing you into, this is really how they're feeling, this is really what they're going through, because this is a regular adventure. It's not every week we got to see a big bad new monster, a rare creature, a rare occurrence, or a new plague. They're just doing regular stuff. So when he opens the door and his party member is right there like, yo, did you just wake up? It's like 6 in the evening. And they get pissed off at me. He's like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I should have been. I don't know. It just feels more like an actual adventure as opposed to a hyperactive, gotta keep you engaged. So every week, every episode, we're giving you crazy bass booms and hella flashy colors. It feels grounded. On top of that, the way that they're going about their adventure, because Frieren has already done this before, literally the adventure that they're going on, she had gone on, it took 10 years before, and she figured, I got thousands of years, let's run it back, and I'm gonna take these young ones with me and teach them some things along the way. She knows how these things go, and there's really no rush to do anything in particular. So they're kind of going through this adventure like a completionist gamer. So I really appreciate that, because like I just said, I play certain games where I really want to 100% them. If I find the different achievements that you can unlock, if I find that menu, the game almost takes a back seat where I'm like, all right, before I finish this main storyline, I'm going to get as many of these side quests and things done before we move on, just so I can make sure that by the time I get to the end of the game, if there's anything that I have to do before the main storyline, I have, you know what I mean? So I'm just like, I get how when they're going on the adventure and Fern is getting kind of like, yo, we gotta move, you know, we gotta keep progressing and doing something. And Frieren's like, no, let's just check out this dungeon right quick. Check out every floor, every hallway. We got to do this right. And Fern's like, why do we got? It makes sense to me because I'm like, yeah, you might find the loot. You might find that secret sword. You might find that Frieren, that grimoire with that weird spell that you've been looking for. That feeling that they are really, it's about the journey, not the destination, that whole feel, they do a really good job of capturing that, but not making it feel corny where it's like, it's all about the friends you make along the way. Aren't we all getting along so swell? Where some of them are like, no, what are you doing? We got to move. Frieren's just like, let's take our time. Let's take our time. So I love that feel to the pace where even though it is slow, they almost acknowledge it and kind of have other characters push Frieren to like, let's pick up the pace. Also, the slower pace makes sense because we're following mainly mages. We're going to get to some nerdy technicalities here, so stay with me. But a magician, they use magic. They're not built to take hits. They're not tanks. They make a point in the show saying that Fern and Frieren need to find a frontrunner or a warrior, someone to like actually hit the things in front of them and like buy them time to set up spells and recite incantations or whatever they need to do to pull in some extra damage or, you know, take out whatever monster. So when you think of it from the aspect that they can't just take hits and just just tank things, and they have to really plan out how they're going to kind of finesse the system and get around certain things, or how are we going to work this out? And they really do a lot more scheming and talking and planning to make sure that their attacks are efficient, they're going to make sense, they're going to work, and no one's going to get hurt or die. Again, it just makes sense for them to slow things down. And then even once they get a front runner, Stark, they move a little quicker because they have him, but it's still not like other enemies where it's just like, oh, this guy has a sword, he's not going to lose. The way they handle it feels like they are actually taking their party members into consideration, not just like everyone's running in to just throw hands with a dragon willy-nilly. You know what I mean? The whole thing gives a heavy D&D campaign vibe with a lot more just tactical thinking and quote unquote realism in a fantasy world. Yeah, it's just cool to see. And I think it's funny to see when they do get stuck somewhere for 3 months because a blizzard hit the base of this mountain pass or whatever, or if they get to a kingdom and the borders are shut down for their foreseeable future because of some political thing going on, or if another town was just taken over by monsters and now they can't make their way through because there's some kind of infestation on the other side or whatever is going. Like, there's so many different aspects that can slow them down. And Frieren's just like, cool, you said we can't get through for 6 years? Big bet. You got a grimoire, you guys got a library here. She's cool. She does not care about the time. But Fern and them are like, we gotta keep moving. And that's what brings me to the juxtaposition. The way that they contrast the elf lifespan and their considerations with humans, the rush that Frieren doesn't have compared to the rush that Fern does have, it gives this tug of war on the pace and on the story that I think is just something you don't see a lot. Usually it's just the main characters doing whatever they do and everyone's like, oh man, there they go again, wasting our time. But Fern doesn't play those games. The other contrast that I really enjoy is between Frieren and Fern. Frieren is a young grandmother. Fern is an old soul. There's things that Frieren being thousands of years old makes her mentally old. She's very wise about magic and adventuring things, but as an elf, she's completely aloof to like interpersonal communications and things like that. She doesn't really think of others in the same way that they think of her, or just kind of relate to others that way because of her species and all that good stuff. Fern had to grow up faster than a kid should have to because of her circumstances. And so when you compare Frieren, who's thousands of years old and wise in terms of magic and adventuring and all these technical things, but has almost zero social skills because she's kind of young and bratty, when you take those two contrasts and you bring these two characters together who are both kind of kids, but also really adult-like, it gives this really cool dynamic between the two of them where at times they're just like, they seem like sisters. But then at other times it feels like Frieren is giving like motherly advice to Fern. And then other times it feels like Fern is really trying to get her badass little kid to just cooperate because Frieren wants to sleep in every day till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So that the way that it switches up with them, it gives them such a full character and a well-roundedness to them where you don't ever feel like they're stuck in being one way, which I think for female characters, they do all too much of just like giving them like this little lane that they fit into, and they're just like, they can't break out of, oh, they're the sex appeal, they're the damsel in distress, they're the cute little baby sister looking. They just kind of let them keep evolving as people and being a good overall character. And I think that the writing for them is just done so well. And I truly enjoyed watching how they interacted with each other and with the other characters around them. Is this the last? Yeah, the last part of the juxtaposition point is just the past versus the present. And I think that because of how Frieren has lived through her first adventure, it is now like ushering in the next generation of adventures and stuff, and you get it to see through her flashbacks how things were in her first run, how the world was, how people were, how situations were, and then you get to see how she deals with all of those things in her second go around, her second chance at life, I guess you could call it. It's cool to get to see how the world has changed in that manner, and also just getting to see how Frieren herself has changed between her adventure with the Heroes Party and now being like the leader of this new party, and guiding these young people through a journey through dangerous shit. I think they do a really good job of balancing, how much they show of the first run through and the current adventure that we're on, where I found myself at least waiting for the next flashback so I could just see a little bit more of what Himmel and Eisen and can't even remember the priest, the Heiter, what they were all like and doing and how they kind of came to grow and because we already see where their adventure ended up, but we're not following those characters. But I don't know, you still feel a connection to them through these flashbacks, and the flashbacks are done so well because they don't feel like those flashbacks in other shows where it's like, damn, bro, my favorite character ain't making it out of this one, huh? This is it. That's his theme music, yup. It doesn't feel like those. Like these they just happen sometimes at mundane stuff where they'll walk up on a statue and Frieren will be like, yeah, I remember when this was made. And it's like, yep, cut back to that. Everything seems to help the characters. It's not just stuff put in for the plot to just move things along. It's just like, hey, here's something's going to unlock something about another character. And I love that. Because of the way they handled it, every line that in any other anime that you've probably seen, those corny hope core lines they drop, all of them, every time they do that in this show, it hits me in my chest. There are two moments that I cannot forget because they were just so epic, but also touching. And I'm not going to spoil them, I'm just going to allude to them and you'll know, but when Eisen talks about being a coward, and when Himmel, last episode, end theme. That's all I'll say. I hated the end theme. Are you all right? I couldn't stand. And then that last episode, yep, they did it. They did that. I lied. The last thing about the juxtaposition: slow, living, fast fights. I'm not going to say too much about this point. I want you to watch it and experience it because the fights are just great. The fights are amazing, but they're not always long. But every encounter feels like an event. It doesn't feel like, oh, that was a quick. It feels like, yep, there were stakes there. That was a thing that, I could have gone a different way. Every encounter feels like an event. And I just think how slow a majority of the show and the adventure is going when you do get to those events, when you do get to those encounters, it just feels like things are really ramping up really fast. And I think that, again, that's just that juxtaposition, bro. That's like the slow living, fast fights. That's all I'm going to say on that one. Let's keep moving on. Really quick, at the end of this video, what do I got? I got a minute 15. We can wrap this before then. Because now we're talking about the world building, right? And there isn't a whole lot I want to say on this because the few things I'm going to say on this, I'm probably going to end up rambling on. So let's just get into it. What made the world building work? What made it so good? I said it in the juxtaposition segment, but getting to see the before and after of the world they're living in and getting to see it through Frieren's eyes as this character who has so much time on her hands that she doesn't really care about certain things. You get to be clued in on the things that she cares about, and you completely miss out on the things that she doesn't care about. And I think that's a cool little tactic, character writing, that is fun to see when you have a what is it called? A not so trustworthy point of view or narrator. I don't know. Yeah, just seeing how the adventures run into random issues where it's not like, oh man, we couldn't get to the highest level of the dungeon because the Minotaur came out and he had a plus 10x. It's not all that weird stuff. It's just like we couldn't get there because the geographical climate changed over the couple thousand years, and Frieren didn't know, or there's a species is causing issues in this town. They talk about the demons in this a lot and how they're like the only monster that can talk, and that's a big deal. Or they learned human speech, and that's a big deal. And I'm not gonna, you'll see. There's things that, or even like the changes in magic policy and governance, that is so nerdy and such a detail that most animes don't care about. But think about that. There's magic in a world, right? Who's keeping that under control? How do they regulate that? They talk about that. I think that's cool. These little things that they do, like explaining the magic system. Power systems are not a new thing. People debate and consider and build out power systems all the time. But there was one moment where during an exam, one of the mages talks about how she uses magic by feel. I've never thought about magic that way, and I know it's not a real thing. Like let's just calm down. Like, I know I'm about to really get nerdy here, but I can't. This is just so cool to me. When you see things like X-Men, or you see like whatever fantastical things, and it's like somebody has a person has wings, like on their back, like an angel has wings, and they're just like flying away. Do you ever think about if you had those wings, how would you fly? And I know some people are just like, I'd fly, bro. I have wings. I would fly. But like, what would flexing that muscle be like? Would that be your existing trapezius muscle that's flexing the wings, or would the wings be? Would there be would the anatomy change so that you have a different muscle to flex the wings and float? Like, you know what I mean? There's things to consider, and I never thought about magic as like you could use it by. She doesn't know the technicals or why things work the way they do. She sees it. She does it. I think that's cool. Athletes. You ever meet like a really great athlete that can't coach for shit? They just know how it should feel. So they start explaining things like, oh, when the ball comes this way, you just gotta bop and do this over here. And everyone's like, what's the technique? And they're like, oh, bro, I don't know. I just do it. I think that little tidbit right there was just so cool to just see how they really take time to kind of build out even the little things that don't really matter most of the time in these fantastical adventures. I think that's cool. Besides that, you get to see different party combinations. You're watching other people come and go on their own adventures. It's not just everyone latching onto the main party, the main character group, and watching their little found family turn into a small army. It's really just this small group and people come and go. And I think that in a world of adventurers, in a world of endless possibilities and magic and dungeons, and people wouldn't just stick together all the time. They have other things that they have to do and want to do, and they would branch off, but they would have those moments where they come together. And sometimes it is like, oh man, there's like an immediate bond here, but I gotta go on and do my thing. And when they do split up, yeah. Oh yeah, the music sets the tone. And when they have those songs that ramp up, and it's not just like loud, it comes in with a swell of orchestral and string and vibe, of fantastical vibe. Yeah. All right, Frieren, go watch it. I can't say enough about it. Hopefully this wasn't too rambly. Hopefully this was definitely yappy, but hopefully it wasn't too yappy. I hope it wasn't